I am resident of Collinwood for YouTube. Jules Sades and his my buddy Gordon Dymowski. We're here to discuss Our Shattered Past, which is a book that's out now
Hmm.
uh, that you can get through Bob Eisel, I believe.
Yeah,
Um,
Bob Issel.
oh,
Um,
sorry.
I I messaged Jewel with Bob's email address. So if you want ordering information, check out the show notes. And as always, like, share, subscribe. If you're watching this at like 10, 11 at night, um, wake up the kids, brew 'em some coffee, maybe go down to the 7-Eleven, get them some smokes. This is educational stuff. You'll get you don't want to miss this episode. It's fun for the whole family.
Yes, yes. I have a question for you. Gordon. When did, because I know I think I'd asked you this before, but let's refresh. When did you first get into Dark Shadows?
Okay, I actually first got into it, and the essay I wrote for the collection, I actually point out it's complicated because I first remember getting into it in college, but I was actually born during the initial run.
Yeah.
And I know that when I was a kid, I must have seen like episodes because when I saw it in college, the in the late 80s when it came out on VHS, like the foyer looked so familiar. The grandfather clock, which you can see on the left side of my screen, looks familiar. Of course, I think this is the same model grandfather clock that Doctor Who used in the Deadly Assassin. So I always thought maybe I'm conflating them. Um, and so it was but I really didn't start watching it until it was getting involved in it until it was out on VHS. And it was like literally um on my way home from class because I was a commuter student. There used to be a video rental place up at like 66th and Pulaski. Now it's a Family Dollar, but and you would get like your it's $1.99 for one tape or three for five. And this wasn't a Blockbuster. This was like a mom and pop video shop. So it was like literally, working part-time, $5, three volumes, you make it through. And they had like ridiculously long rental times. So, that's and once I started with Barnabas, I that's it literally was just, oh, okay. This is the show that um I had always read it. It was the soap opera with a vampire in it. Um, and so I knew about it historically. I just never watched it until then, and I'm like, okay, yeah, now I get it. Now I understand why this show was so great.
And there's some really, for those who haven't seen the beginning episodes, so there's some really good writing there too. Art Wallace, Francis Swan,
Hmm.
Ron Sproat, great writers early on. Before we get Gordon Russell, before we get Sam Hall, uh, but we are going to get those writers too, and they're really good too.
Hmm.
Dark Shadows always had a very vast number of writers who were really talented. Were
Yeah,
most of them out of college, you think,
most of them out of college.
or were they out of college, or were they? Because I know Ron Sproat or sorry, not taught, but had directed Jonathan in the play.
Ron Sproat directed Jonathan to play. I don't know. I honestly don't know if they like their all their backgrounds. I do know like Sam Hall and Gordon Russell were both like I think Sam Hall might have been a playwright and Gordon Russell had done some other writing because I know Violet Wells came from I think she was working as like a Broadway agent or adjacent to that. I think it helped that when you look at the if you look at the writing of Dark Shadows from day one, I think that first the pre-Barnabas stuff, I think they're kind of trying to work through like let's do like what I think to break it down. The pre-Bill Malloy death of Bill Malloy stuff, I think is basically okay, people who are trying to write a soap opera, a gothic soap opera, but kind of focusing more on the soap opera than the gothic. Nothing wrong with it, but it's kind of like they're trying to ease their way in. And once with the Bill Malloy, the Ghost of Bill Malloy, it's like, oh, we have something. So that's like the first the first gear clicks. and then you kind of work through some of those until you get to some of the to the Laura storyline, and that's when another clicks because I've always thought it was very interesting that by the time they get there, they don't do, I think they're thinking, okay, we need to do something more supernatural. And you would think that that point you would try to do like a vampire or, you might want or more of a ghost story or whatever. I think pulling from mythology does a couple of things because it's one, there's no rules about it. It's like, okay, wait, I thought Phoenix was a bird. Well, who cares? In Dark Shadows, it's Dynamo Lake. Go figure. Um, and you've got it's I think it's Peter Guthrie who's your proto Stokes. You also have it as having it's not this big threat against the entire family necessarily. It's a very specific threat at Roger. And that's where you kind of get a slight redemption to and a slight like kind of rethinking of the Roger and David arc. Because like Roger just doesn't care and David's awful, you know.
Yeah.
And I think you needed so I think that whole pre-Barnabas stuff, um, I know there are many who think it's uh, oh, it's dull and boring and nobody cares and blah 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 blah. And I'll say that it's not my favorite part of Dark Shadows, but I think in any show, that first year, you're figuring out how to write the show and you're
Yeah.
figuring out where you go. And it could have been easy because, like, let's like, had the Bill Malloy thing not worked, you wouldn't have gotten to Laura. If Laura didn't work, you wouldn't have gotten to Barnabas.
I think what works too with the earlier episodes is you have characters making the suggestion that the house is haunted
Mm-hmm.
before you ever see a ghost. The power of suggestion, or writer, the power of suggestion in a story is sort of a great thing to deliver to an audience because they haven't seen anything yet, but they're kind of hinting around that something's up here, maybe up here, and then you get because before you see the ghost, there's a couple moments where David comes in from removing the bleeder valve that he's covered in oil and dirt and shit, and Elizabeth is dreaming. No, no, there's no ghost here. And it's sort of playing on her subconscious that she's been asked this before by somebody. Um, we know Vicky's probably asked about it, but somebody else other than Vicky is asked about it. So it plays on Elizabeth's mind, and she's you don't see the dream, but she's dreaming of it. Joan does a good job. And when David runs away, there's this moment where Vicky's alone in the house, and this violent thunderstorm comes, and the power goes out, and there's this ghostly figure standing in the foyer, between the foyer and the drawing room, at the entrance of the drawing room, and she hollers out to it, and it doesn't answer. It's before Bill Malloy's death. It's really creepy. So
And I think too, it's at that point, very early in the show's run where, there's not much. I think once they get to Josette coming down in was it episode 70? I'm going to say 77, but I don't think that's the episode number where you
uh,
first see Josette's ghost. Um,
no, it's sooner than that, but it's
okay, for some reason I have it at 77, I didn't yeah, I don't like with Dark Shadows, I rarely think in terms of episodes um it's usually the one where Barnabas shoots Angelique and she curses her, or the one where Josette's ghost first shows up. So, but yeah,
yeah,
I mean, like if they didn't hadn't figured out how to do that on camera, um, they would have done a lot more like it would have been like, oh, there's a noise. What is it? That kind of writing. And I think that you have to keep in mind, that first year they're all entering into it was they've got Art Wallace's Bible. They've got that kind of initial outline. They know they're doing a soap opera, a gothic soap opera, which, okay, what does that mean? Well, you can, and they're not thinking, it's not like now where you can go on your chat GPT and go, you know, you know, give me some themes, give me some gothic themes so we can throw them in the soap opera. This was the mid 60s, and even if there were chat GPT, those people are too smart for that, Ron Sproat and Sam Hall are not going to go like, they're going to go hang out at like used bookstores looking for stuff, then going chat GPT over that, they're going to go to their local library. But yeah, they're trying to figure out they're good they're doing some okay stuff, but it's not like an episode, it's not like Dan Curtis said, okay, well, we're gonna do a ghost story, then we're gonna do a Phoenix story, and then we're gonna do a vampire. I mean, a lot of this was just seat of their pants. I mean, if Dan Curtis's daughter hadn't said make it really scary, throw in a vampire, I think Dark Shadows might have floundered a little bit after Laura. Because okay, what do you do? Take the vampire out. What do you do after that? That's going to raise the stakes a little bit. Of course, you could always
Yes,
bring in Harry Johnson. I mean, you know, he's the breakout character.
yeah, because the only other angle going on, like during like the Barnabas era, sort of, is Jason and Willie, and then one of the best sort of openings of Dark Shadows, and it's right after Jason and Willie showed up, that one of these men are going to release the greatest secret the Collins ever had,
Hmm.
and it's that there is holy shit. Uh,
Yeah, and in a different worlds, the dark secret that Willie releases on the world is the secret recipe to Mrs. Johnson's chili. Because as everyone knows, um, some things just don't go in chili. Mayonnaise does not go in chili. Pickles do not go in chili.
oh,
Yeah. But we're not going to go there. Let's bring it back. It's your show, Jewel. I I apologize.
no, no. Um, so sorry, you wrote an essay in this Our Shadow Past. When were you approached to write an essay, or did you just send it?
Um, I just reached out and asked.
Oh,
Because I'm trying to remember. I know Penny Dreadful did volume two when that first came out. I'm trying to think. I I'm trying to remember. Somebody posted about it, and at first I thought it was you because you're up top on all these things. Don't let. I know on this show, some of your guests, me included, have spoken down to you. We've kind of engaged in what they say in wrestling, cheap heat, which which you know but I know it was somebody else's note. I emailed Bob Issel. Yeah, I sent Jewel the contact information, so look down. And he said, "Oh, okay, here's what I'm looking for. Here's the due date. Here's what, and most books like that. And for those who don't know, Our Shadowed Past is a collection of fan memories, stories, poetry, um, all sorts of things focused on the show from fans of all types. And as Jules Leaf, I just want to give a special shout out to a certain lady, young lady. She knows who she is. And I just want to say one thing to you because I know you're watching. I want to quote the great poet Kenny Rogers, he's interpreting the words of Lionel Richie and I'd like to get in that spirit and say, lady, I'm your knight in shining armor, and I love you. Um, Everyone else, you can go awe, but no, it was basically an assembly where I just proposed the essay. Bob said yes. I wrote it. I sent it, and they said yes. And so I think this would be the moment where Jewel would ask me some question about, can you bench press your weight in Swiss cheese or something like that? Um, and and this is rare for me because as you know, I appear with um, since I'm the sole focus of this, and I'm very grateful of that. I just want to thank all of you out there for watching. Whether you're watching with me, you're watching with, I know Jewel had Kristen on from Behind the Shadows. He has Alan on, he's had Daniel on, he's had Patrick on. But I just want to say to you, the audience, I really appreciate you for watching this. And I know Jewel does. And I think with this, I would just say, if you can, share it. Write nice things in the comments about him because he's a great guy. He is wonderful. He's funny. He does not take, he doesn't take guff from anybody. His kids are wonderful. Julie, his wife, is very wonderful. And I know what you're all thinking. You're all thinking, hey, Gordon, you're going on a little with the yip yip, and that's fine, because I don't want to just sit here and going, oh, for minutes, and you're all just sitting there watching. And here's Joel coming back, and so yeah, Joel, I kept the audience engaged for you. Um,
I know, right, Paul?
yeah, and I
Uh,
didn't say
yeah,
I didn't say anything bad about you. I didn't engage in cheap heat or heel heat or even go away heat. Now,
yeah,
am
there
I
you go.
using those phrases correctly?
Absolutely. Good
Thank
job.
you.
Good job. I'm proud of you. But yeah, there's from, it's good to, what I'm most proud of for Dark Shadows is people putting stuff out there for.
Hmm.
I love watching videos with Penny, of Between Shadows, of Alan, and I love the fact that we're getting all these books put out by fans. You know, Patrick's, Bob Eisel's. You're getting these, and it's from fans, by fans, for fans.
Hmm. Yeah, and I mean, it's actually lucky enough, and a couple of years ago, um, I'm one of the contributors to DePaul University here puts on a pop culture conference every year, and every year it's a different fandom. It's like it started with Doctor Who, then it was Joss Whedon, Star Trek, Supernatural, da 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 da. And about 2 years ago, they did a celebration of time travel. And in Chicago, I'm known as the Doctor Who guy, but I figured the last thing that I needed to do or that the conference needed to do is another Doctor Who paper. And I may have mentioned this on the podcast before. And if I did, you can tell me to shut up or, you can, if you want to call me out, I'll meet you in a Waffle House parking lot. You can kick my ass. Anyway, but I wrote in a paper because as Patrick, who once called me an uh, unintellectual snob, um, likes to point out in our private conversations when he's asking me for cool guy tips, he'd say, well, Gordon, you're a psychologist. You have a background in psychology, which I do. I have a master's in counseling psychology. And I was looking at the storyline of Dark Shadows, because as Patrick says, it's all one big story. So if you think about it in terms of, okay, you take the storylines, 1878, all the historical storylines, 1795, 1840, 1895, and you take all the actors, Louis Edmonds, Joan Bennett, Nancy Barrett, um, you can, I started like looking at the character relationships and I came up with a theory that um, the time travel stuff in Dark Shadows is showing the effects of transgenerational trauma, which is um, and I'm going to do this is going to be a lot of pop psychology here, folks. But the idea is that when Barnabas is turned into a vampire, that is the initial kickoff trauma that we see, and we see it play out over generations. So in 1795, we know what happens. Naomi kills herself. Joshua has changed Barnabas in the coffin. Um, uh, you know, uh, you see that it devastates the family. When you look at 1840, it's the first generation. That family is messed up. I mean, Daniel's out of his mind. And I looked at it chronologically. And in 1895, you can see how it's kind of metastasized. And then in 1967, you kind of see where like the Roger who's the early kind of I don't give a crap about my kid, in 1966, you could see where, okay, there's that kind of, distant father thing going on. You know, with Joan Bennett, she plays different variations of the matriarch. Um, and you can kind of see how that works. And I wrote a paper, and if you can find the book, I think you can still find the book on Amazon, but the paper was like named Dark Shadows, Time Travel, and Transgenerational Trauma. And it was kind of a way to explain all this. And I kind of also looked at the two parallel time sequences in comparison. So if you look at, and I think those two are two completely different timelines. Because I think the parallel time room in Dark Shadows depends on who's opening the door at what point. So the 1970 parallel time, I think the main difference is there's no Angelique. Whether she's whether maybe, her parents never met, or maybe she never got involved with Barnabas, or maybe, or or maybe Thayer David like found the original storyline and used it to light a cigar because he thought it was crap. Who knows? We don't know. None of us really knows.
Uh,
Um, and the other one, the 1840 parallel time, I think my theory is that Isaac Collins was not the founder of Collinsport. It was Brutus. And I know, and this is where I'm going to talk smack about a Dark Shadows writer. And you may think you know who I'm going to talk about, Joel, but shame on you because I'm not going to talk about that one. I'm going to talk about another one. Um, I'm not going to mention his name, but um, I'll just say it rhymes with Manny Corn. And this writer is writing about the 1840 parallel time, and I think it's like the episode where Brutus Collins shows up. We first see
yeah.
Brutus Collins, and this writer is complaining about how, well, why is like, well, it's so weird because Collinwood was built, and it's supposedly was built at this later time, da da da. It's like, okay, dude, okay, dude. First, low tones, deep cleansing breath. Let it go. It takes place in a storyline called parallel time. You know what that means? Parallel time means things happen differently. Maybe in this timeline, crazy idea, Joel, you can be the voice of sanity in this. Maybe in this band of parallel time, Brutus Collins built Collinwood. But no, and the fun thing was now that I get a paper published, I actually had to present it. And there's a 1 day conference in downtown Chicago. You can get, you've got, they do like a silent auction, and I actually got to present in front of a wide variety of people, and we were like the last session of the day. And it's, one person is, Star Trek, do, 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 like all I tell you, when I did my presentation, just explaining the storyline of Dark Shadows, people had fun with it. I mean, people who really are, they, the type of like dry academics that, they wear their blazers and they've got their glasses and they speak in dulcet tones and they're talking about all this stuff. And you should know, Jewel, because you've had to experience it with three of that personality type multiple times, you know? It's me and the two other guys basically. So, that kind of, oh, well, but um that was fun. And I think to your point that now is there's more stuff coming out about Dark Shadows. I think the more, and Patrick even said this long ago, that um, more people should be writing and promoting the show, not just writing and promoting it like, hey, this is a great show, but like writing academic stuff, bringing it into bringing it, making people look at it and go like, yeah, this did a lot, not just for not just for horror, but for serialized drama. I think it did a lot to really um, kind of cement the idea that yeah, you could take certain tropes and remix and redo them. Um, I think without Dark Shadows, obviously you don't get Buffy, but I also think you don't get the idea that okay, you can do um a, plot lines throughout an entire series. I think you get the idea that you can actually take stage actors, put them in a scene, and you know not worry about special effects. I mean, when you think about how Dark Shadows was produced, okay, it's a soap opera. They only have a budget of then that was like maybe 10,000 a week. So 2,000, assuming 2,000 an episode. So low budget, three old school big ass cameras where you have to physically push them. And you've
Yeah.
got a guy in flipping switches and making sure he's going, okay, camera two, camera three, whatever. You've got at least two standing sets, the foyer and the drawing room, maybe the addition of two other sets. So four sets in total. You've got up to five speaking parts, if you're lucky. Um, and you've got, and the actor schedule is okay. Come in, do a read through, um, block on one floor, go on set that's prepared. You block off, and by 3:34, you do it live. You can't cut. If you flub a line, you've got to figure out a way to do it, and then it's like, okay, on the way out, here's your script for tomorrow. You've got writers like trying to figure out some writers are actually as they're trying to bash out the scripts for upcoming storylines, they're also dealing with Dan Curtis and his golf club of evil, and it's all like, okay, we need to figure out like you know um I'd love to know, like, now we with some shows we know like what storylines wouldn't were like rejected. I would love to know if there are any storylines where the writers were like, "Oh no, there's no way we can do that." Um I'm trying to think. I could see like some junior writer saying, "Hey, I've got an idea. Let's just strand the cast on an island with a boat in a hole with it." And Curtis is like, "Look, that don't pull that Gilligan's Island crap here. We've already done that. This is a soap opera. This ain't Gilligan's Island. I can kick Sherwood Schwartz's ass if I can drink more than him, whatever." But when you look at how, I think it's also impressive that for a show where we've got 12,000, like, no, like a little over 1,200 episodes, we're only missing one. Doctor Who has like in the classic run, there's like 967, and currently there's 95. And yes, I know there's a rumor that there may be some missing episodes that have been found, but as of now, it's 95. Don't at me. Seriously. Do not at me about Doctor Who. This is not a Doctor Who podcast. If you're going to bring that Doctor Who stuff, I've got Jules back. Jules back, not yours. Like don't go there.
The interesting thing about parallel time too with 1840, I do hear what you're saying about Brutus because when you think about it, where was because in 1840 we get Josette alive,
Mm-hmm.
and where is she living? She's living in the old house,
Mm-hmm.
and Josette actually married Barnabas, and they lived in the old house, and it was probably Joshua living in the old house. Naomi. We don't hear about Sarah, so we don't know what happened there. But because again, you don't need to know about every character, just the ones that are there. And we know that Barnabas has a son in 1840, Grandma.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I could see Brutus being the one who who built the house in 1840, the Great House. Um, because it would make sense. I mean, why should it be the same person if it's parallel time? That's sort of what we
Hmm.
learned too with 1970 a bit, where different things seem to happen in different order. Quentin is the master of calling.
Hmm.
So parallel time. He was married to Angelique, who is the daughter of a Stokes.
Right. And yeah, and my theory is that the parallel time room, it you know, well, my overall theory, and if you want to have this conversation with Alan and Patrick as well as me, that's great. I probably won't get in a word in edgewise, but I'm willing to risk it. I think when we're what we're what I think the overall one of the arcs of Dark Shadows, and it's an unintentional arc, is I really think it's about Collinwood becoming not only alive but sentient. But I think because I think that room, let's say the house decided that room was going to be, it turned on the parallel time room in say 1966, because I could see Victoria Winters opening the door, and she's witnessing um, Elizabeth and Carolyn having an argument, and Carolyn is like, "Why are you being so kind to this stranger?" And Elizabeth says, "Elizabeth is my daughter. She deserves the legacy of Collinwood more than you do." Or if, say, Edward in 1897 opens the door, he sees Quentin, you know, Jenny is very much a regal, she's very quiet. They have like two little kids, and, Quentin is like, it's such a shame that it took the death of my brother Edward to get me to straighten out my life and be a good dad. Like that's to me how the parallel time room works. It's not a room to one band of time. It's kind of this is where it's going to get a little pretentious, folks. There's a there is a kind of in quantum physics, there's the idea that the act of observing affects the observed. So if you're looking at a particle, the fact that you're tracking a particle that's moving, um, you can there's the fact that you're observing the particle, you're affecting its behavior somehow. And I think with parallel time, that room works that way. That you could easily see, like if I think unless your last name is Trask, like if I think Reverend Trask looks at that room, he knows he's going to be buried in the old house. you know um Gregory Trask, he knows he's going to end up in that other room confused, and people assume he's Quentin. Lamar, it's like, okay, yeah, Lamar's going to walk into the room and get shot because that's how Lamar dies. He you know So yeah, I do think that I think parallel, and plus it's just a lot more interesting if it's based on the person's perception, um, or somehow that initial perception gets locked. Because I know with the 1970, Roger looks in on parallel time, like other characters see that particular time track, but I don't think it's. I think they kind of see it as, well, Barnabas told us this, so there you go.
And two, even with like regular time travel in 1795 too, 1795 keeps repeating itself, but each time it repeats itself, it's different to a degree. Like
Hmm.
when okay, when Barnabas goes back one time, Natalie Dupre, who actually got Bertha May to come in and try to help him, is totally against Barnabas, is trying to kill him. It's like, wait, this is not the same Natalie. It's different somehow.
Hmm.
And there's no explanation given other than this is a time branch. This is not quite the same thing. It's not, this isn't a character 180. It's just things are different because, well, Victoria went back and she wasn't supposed to go back. So they had changed things. And that
Hmm.
change caused that split. And each
Yeah.
time somebody goes back,
Yeah, it's like when you look at, like, and part of this paper I wrote for DePaul, part of my theory is that when you engage in time travel, your brain kind of starts seeing um, everyone else in terms of, even though they had the same actors because budget, they're not going to hire somebody new to play Joshua, somebody new to play Naomi, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But your brain, in universe, I think your brain just adjusts to it because when Victoria shows up in 1795, she's doing oh, you look like Matthew Morgan, you look like Roger Collins, you look like this person. Um, and I think I'm sure that and again, if it's the idea of, your presence actually changes the timeline. When Barnabas goes, when Barnabas goes back to 1795 several times, yeah, he keeps changing the timeline. When Barnabas shows up when he I Chings himself back into 1897, and folks, if you ever I Ching yourself, get to an emergency room. Seriously, that can be deadly. Okay, that's don't eat kids. Don't I Ching yourself.
Oh,
Um, but when he does that, I'm sure that when he woke up, he's looking. Okay, it's like okay, um, Edward. Oh, great, Edward looks like my dad. Looks like Joshua. He also looks like Roger. So I think he's got a little bit of that going on. And then, with 1840, um, I'm sure that like Julia and Stokes, when they go down the magic staircase, um, are thinking, oh, okay, great. Oh, that looks like Roger. Like I'm sure they're doing it, but it's like, by that point, um, it's like they've just seen all the crap that went on in 1970. So it's like, you know what, we're just gonna move forward. We need to change this stuff pronto.
and they did. That's the thing too. Julia, and because when you get into 1840 regular time, between Barnabas and Julia, they have seen so much shit up until that point. Like they went into the future, and Barnabas has already been through so much himself, going back in 1795 to
Hmm.
save Vicky, going to 1897, going to 1970 parallel time, somewhat working for the Leviathan and then not working for them. I mean, to say Barnabas has been in it deep is an understatement.
Yeah, like I could see in that band of parallel time where Dark Shadows did not go off the air in 1971. I could see like in May or June, depending on how they dealt with the storyline, just doing like a quiet because I know at that point Frid and Dan Curtis were not getting along. I could see like maybe shifting a little bit more to David Selby and making Selby kind of like let him kind of graduate to be lead and Barnabas becomes a background character. So it's like it might be like, okay, we'll have Frid on for 3 weeks, and then Barnabas will be like off, and he'll be, um, he'll be hanging out with his friend Mike, his architect friend Mike Brady, who just got married and they got 6 kids. Maybe he'll head down to Petticoat Junction or maybe Barnabas will just be like, yeah, I'm just going to hang out at the old house and chill. I mean, I'm really not in the mood. Because yeah, Barnabas is. It's why I kind of think that like with it's like with the initial, you know, the whole Maggie Evans, the initial arc with Maggie Evans, where he's trying to possess her. I think when you look at that. you know, I know eventually he became like the lead, but he was never the hero of Dark Shadows. He was just not the villain. It's not until like I would say the whole 1995, summer of 1970, 1840, where he starts to become the hero because he's moving through. He's not only seen a lot of stuff, but he's very pretty much basically he's not doing it for noble, selfless means. Like he's doing it because he doesn't want to change. And I think once that final storyline kicks off, we get the sense that he's starting to develop a conscience. That when he realizes he's always been in love with Angelique, it doesn't feel like it's coming from a left field. It's like, hey, look, you know, um, I think he realizes that he was never really in love with Josette, but the idea of Josette, that it's like it was like there were two people who, kind of were fond of each other, but I don't think Josette was the great love of his life. Um, but to your point about Barnabas seeing a lot of stuff, yeah, Barnabas and Julie have seen a lot of stuff. And I know there's some fans of like, oh, they would necessarily get together. I see it the opposite. I see it as Barnabas is like, Julia, you need to take your own sedatives and stay the hell away from me. Okay. Barnabas would get his own life. Julia would have her own life.
Here's the thing too, like by the end of the series, when they're going to what is basically the Collinsport Historical Society, where they're going to this, Roger's giving this speech, it's like, does Barnabas go? Here's the guy who just lived through history. He literally, right? It's like, who
Well,
knows what he
we
does?
we we don't know. I mean, Roger could talk about like my personal theory is that Jameson grows up and becomes a bootlegger.
Yeah,
So that would be really that would be interesting because like I'd love to see again if Dark Shadows ever did like a bootlegger 1930s one. Do you know who I would love to see play a young Roger Collins?
who's
Hmm?
who's that?
Christopher Pennock.
There, yeah, they would have been good.
Yeah, because I think he could do the okay. You've got this guy, the dad, like Louis Edmonds would be a perfect old, adult Jameson who's like, yeah, he's started this business, this side business, and he's doing the whole Jay Gatsby thing because it's like, hey, look, um, we got to stay in money, and we've got to, um, we can, the shipping thing isn't quite working for us, and you'd have a character who's dealing with a guy who, basically was raised by Quentin Collins, and he's like, oh, I'm never going to be like that guy. I'm going to, I mean, just the scene of Christopher Pennock crushing a brandy snifter in his hand. I would pay to see that. I would
Yeah,
pay cash money to see that.
yeah, yeah. I would like Christopher Benoit. I would have loved to see him like that. It's again, Dark Shadows didn't do spin-offs. It'd have been cool if they would have
Mhm.
or did
And
something.
and you know who and just and I'm approaching this from a 21st century fanish perspective. You know who would be really interesting to, he and you can answer this question, Jewel, because I think you and I would think alike. Do you know who you hire to play young Elizabeth?
Hmm.
Alexandra Moltke.
Yeah,
Or if she's not available, Betsy Durkin.
yeah, that would
Like
make
like actually
sense.
like actually square the circle. Like actually call that out.
Yeah, like today, like somebody I'd like to see play a young Elizabeth. She kind of looks like Joan a bit. Is Lisa Vicari? Um, she's in Dark and um, that Western I just watched on Netflix. Oh, the Django had
Hmm.
yeah. So it had Mad Nicholson in it. Uh, Mads Mikkelsen. But yeah, to me, the way she was in this very old fashioned outfit with these pearls. I'm like, she kind of looks like Joan a bit, a young Joan. It's like,
Hmm.
okay, I could see her being a young Joan then, or young Elizabeth or something. But yeah, I do think there's Alexandra. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
She was
like 73, 74, like
73.
that way,
Yes.
because she would have, her one son would have been like old enough where he was either starting kindergarten, she could put him into school. Um, you don't have to have her carry the main plot because we kind of know, okay, that Elizabeth is going to get, you get like a newish actor to play Jason McGuire, so you kind of, and maybe what you do is maybe you set up I want, you could start seeding the ideas about the whole Jason McGuire, Paul Stoddard thing because I you could even suggest it. I think there's potential there, but unfortunately, we don't live in that world. But it would be so cool to have that, and especially because I know there's some idea that, hey, maybe it would have been great if they went to California and got a budget and did all that. I think probably I'm trying to think because I know a lot of soaps moved from New York to California in the 70s because I know General Hospital was one of them. I'm not sure if All My Children and One Life to Live were. Um, but I don't see, I don't see Dark Shadows as a primetime drama necessarily, but I could see if they said, if had it stuck it out through the 70s, it's like, okay, you're gonna be an hour-long soap and you're gonna move to the West Coast because that way you've got, just thinking from my youth, 12 to 1 was always All My Children. 1 to 2 was One Life to Live. 2 to 3 was General Hospital. And then 3 to 4 would be Dark Shadows. And yeah, there'd be a lot of, oh, we can't come home from school. We can't run home from school because school's still on, or we're only going to catch the last half hour. But the cool thing is you would have had a little bit more time and presumably a little bit more budget to kind of go in depth.
Yeah. Could you? That's the thing too. Something they could have did too a little bit was because they mentioned, you know, is there other branches of family? And it's like you could have got into that too for Dark Shadows to continue. You could have something I would have loved to see is that I would have loved to see them bring back James Storm, not have him play Barnabas, but have him play play a vampire.
Mm-hmm.
Because James Storm's a talented
Mm-hmm.
actor. He could have did it. um, but yeah, they could have. There was a lot of roads they could still go down. Could have went down in the 70s. Something
Yeah.
I wish they. I don't know if they researched it or not, but something I wish they would have gotten into or suggested a bit is skinwalkers. I don't know, you know.
Yeah, I know there's a big Finnish audio that's called The Skinwalkers with Quentin.
Oh wow,
Um, yeah, and yeah, and let me grab about Dark Shadows on Big Finish for a bit. If you wouldn't mind, Jewel.
no, okay.
Um, it's like because I think Big Finish when they first got the range at least tried.
Right.
And a lot of their early stuff, but and the Skinwalkers is one of the better ones. There's also one called I think the Night Winds or the Night Whisperer, with Jonathan Fred, because it was, his return. Um, and I think it would have been if they had come in the 90s, they would have been great because that's when um, Dark Shadows was being shown on Sci-Fi in England. So you would have had not only that interest, but you would have had. But I think part of the issue is that after a while, um, Stuart Manning left as producer. Somebody else took on the role, and they were not a Dark Shadows fan. They didn't hate it. It was just a job. And literally a lot of they moved away from like full cast to like basically short stories read on audiobooks. So like little 1 hour pieces. And a lot of them, the writing you could tell was basically choose column A was your Dark Shadows character. Column B was like your plot device. And then column C was kind of like some random idea. So like Carolyn Stoddard, um, Leviathans, Magic Pearl, or trying to think, there's a great one. I think it's called what is it? I forget the title, but it's based. I think it's something like Judgment Day but it's basically Lara Parker and Catherine Lee Scott, Josette and Angelique face off in the underworld. Brilliant. Um, Jerry Lacey does one called Wicked and the Dead, which is brilliant. Um, Jerry Lacey and Angelique do the Tony and Cassandra Peterson mysteries, where it's basically supernatural mysteries, lots of fun banter. But towards the end, it was literally like, okay, item A, item B, item C, cut off, and there just wasn't any spark to them. Laura Parker, in the episode which she did with Penny Dreadful before she passed away, Penny asked her straight out, like, hey, what about Big Finish? And Laura said, it started good, but for a while it was just a paycheck. And Big Finish kind of petered out because Big Finish has a policy of um, they if a range is not bringing in more money than they're producing it, because they're a small company, a relatively small company, they won't do it anymore. And I think they just decided, I think they actually canceled several ranges in production, several stories in production of Big Finish. And I say this because they've really leaned into literally Doctor Who, and they're doing kind of the same thing, which is, hey, if it's a character, we'll create a whole range and we'll do these 3-hour box sets and everything else. And it's like, if you're going to, I think that there should be, I think it's it's one of the issues I have with Doctor Who, but I think one of the dangers with Dark Shadows that I'm trying to reach at is that I don't want it to just be content for the sake of content. Like, if you're going to do Dark Shadows, do it. Don't just put stuff out there. Don't be like the recent season of Star Trek Strange New Worlds. Yeah, don't be like the Disney era of Doctor Who, where you start out with an episode called Space Babies. And Joel, I want to warn you right now. This is just me and you. Because I care about you, okay, Joel? I really care about you. If anyone says, "Hey, Joel, do you want to see an episode of Doctor Who called Space Babies?" They are not your friend. You need to cut them out of your life. You have better things to do.
Space
Don't
Baby.
watch it. Don't let Julie watch it. Don't let your kids watch it. And I'm not saying this because of censorship. I'm saying this because I have seen it. It is not good. It's
Damn.
about basically talking babies on a space station that are being pursued by a bogey monster, and it's a monster made of snot.
We- Is somebody sure this isn't a Lost Muppets episode or
No, 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 no. This is an actual
I
Doctor Who
know.
episode. No space babies, Joel. I would warn anyone out there, don't, Alan, don't watch it. Kristen, don't watch it. Patrick, you watch it. Prove me wrong, Patrick. You should watch it. In fact,
Uh,
you go watch it and you tell me.
there that's the thing with like okay, you and I are fans of MacGyver.
Hmm.
To us, I think we agree. MacGyver doesn't have bad episodes because it's just he goes on these crazy adventures and he doesn't always seek them out. Some of them find him.
Yeah. Like he sometimes, my favorite MacGyver episodes are the one where he's just like he's doing something else and he gets in trouble.
Yeah, yeah.
And the other thing about MacGyver is that you learn actual practical skills. For example, using an episode that you and I watched, Jewel, if you and I are ever trapped in a tray, in a truck, and there's like a beat up cab in there, and we're trapped, and we've got 7 minutes to get out. We know to look for a can of oil, some pantyhose, um, use some rust from the muffler, and we can make a bomb.
I got to tell you, I followed Michael Depar uh, on Instagram, and he's hilarious.
Okay, I'm gonna have to seek out Michael Debar.
He's on Instagram.
No, I believe you, Jewel.
He's it's funny. He had a picture of Richard Dean Anderson's MacGyver, and he was holding a shotgun in his modern age. He goes, "He just won't leave me alone."
Hmm. So
Uh,
kids, you know what? When you're if you get a day off from school because you're sick, have your parents crank up the Tubi, watch MacGyver.
yes,
That'll be the
yes.
best, and not the newer one where it's like the team and no, 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 no. If it doesn't have Richard Dean Anderson, it's not the real MacGyver.
And you can go to Walmart, get the box set for like $30.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
really
parents, that $30 to buy the MacGyver box set is the best money you will ever spend.
that's what I got. That's what I initially got it for when I
Mm-hmm.
went to Walmart, and it's worth it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Paramount, if you're listening, release the Blu-ray. Like,
Yeah.
hurry
Yeah,
up.
let's put those puppies out on Blu-ray, you know.
That's it. That's it. They should too. Because I would love to see Richard Dean Anderson and Michael DeBar sitting down with Bruce McGill and talking about this stuff. You know what it is.
And you know what would be really cool? Because the classic Doctor Who series and DVD does this. They actually do like these for trailers. They actually do like these mini episodes. So imagine you have it at the junkyard where, you know, MacGyver comes, Jack comes, and they're like, "Oh, we got we got this note from Pete." Um, well, and you know, Murdoch is like, "Well, wait, didn't Pete die years ago?" MacGyver's like, "You're right." And Jack says, didn't Pete die years ago?" And MacGyver says, "You're right." And Murdoch goes, "Ha ha, got you." And MacGyver's like, "Look, Richard Deanne says, look, we've done this episode. We know it's going to happen." And Murdoch like, "Oh, okay, whatever." And then watch it on Blu-ray. See, there you go.
I like that. I like that.
See, Hollywood, why aren't you giving us money? We can,
Yes.
you know, Jewel and I, we'll bring in Alan because he's got some good ideas. But this is people. This is why you watch this podcast. You may watch it for the Dark Shadows stuff, but you get major entertainment. You get laughter. You get jokes. Sometimes you even get sometimes you get like things falling off my desk that you don't see. So, but yeah, watch this podcast, like it, share it, subscribe it, tell your friends. Um, we'll have we'll start. Here's a fun thing for you college kids who are over 21. New drinking game. Um, every time one of us makes a wrestling reference, you gotta take a shot.
Right.
So paper champion. There you go. That one's on me.
Uh, yeah. That ladder match. So yeah. Um, yeah, yeah. Is there anything you want to add before we go now?
Well, I would say if you want to check out Our Shadowed Past Volume 3, I'll make sure Jewel has the email. Email Bob, order it. Because you also get he's throwing in like a free DVD of like, so he's got some free DVDs available. So you can actually choose one to come with your ping. It's going to be a thick volume. I've heard that my essay is laid out. It's called Friendships Forged in Shadows. Um, um, there's also a shout out to my good friend Craig Anderson. There's a very fun DS convention story from the 90s, which I'm not going to share here because it involves it just you read the essay for yourself. It's funny. You'll love it. Um, and it's like you'll understand why, like, even though sometimes I don't get a chance to say anything in these podcasts, not through any fault of Jules' own, hint hint, but you'll get that, yeah, I'm not just a guy who's here because I have nothing better to do, or
Yeah.
I'm bored out of my skull, or I'm three sheets to the wind. I come by my DS fandom quite fairly and quite honestly.
I've never asked you this. What's your favorite vampire movie?
Oh, favorite vampire movie. Oh, that's a tough one. Because they're so. I'm gonna have to go with the original Christopher Lee Hammer Dracula.
Yeah.
Christopher Lee, Peter Cushing. There you go.
Yeah. Very, very great choice. Uh, Link to Gordon Dymowski's Amazon page on the website is going to be in the description box. You can get him on Facebook. Believe you're on Instagram. Blue
Yeah, I'm on
Sky.
Instagram.
You're on Instagram? Cool. You can get him on Blue Sky, uh, at Gordon D. Go follow Gordon.
Yeah, yeah,
He's also
you can follow me. You know, on Blue Sky, I talk about all sorts of stuff. Dark Shadows, Doctor Who. Um, I sometimes share recipe tips. I'll even, I'll even if you look back, I'll even teach you how to install and do an install of Linux completely from the command line. It'll be wonderful. Again, it's one of those things, get the kids, brew some coffee, get them some smokes, it'll be fun.
yeah, yeah. But we're gonna all have to get together and do a Halloween discussion. What would you guys want to see in a Halloween series? That would be fun. But because I know what I want to see, I want to hear you guys' thoughts, or don't you want to see anything at all? But yeah, because I never know what any of you guys are going to say, which is the fun part of all this that we do.
Hmm.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, there will be a link to Bob Eisel. Gordon will send but Bob's email. So Gordon, man, this has been a blast. Have
Yep.
a good night, buddy.
You too. Good night.
Good night.